Good morning, everyone. Really nice to see you here this morning. My name is Eveline van Leeuwen. I'm the Vice President of ERSA. I'm also a Professor of Urban Economics at Wageningen University and the Scientific Director of the Amsterdam Institute for Advanced Metropolitan Solutions. And it's really nice to also be part of this winter school. I myself, when I was a student, I've enjoyed several summer schools and I have very good memories of it. And I think they're really very important in academic terms. So you can see all these bright speakers that we also have in this program, that you get to know other students. And even though now it's a bit more difficult than when you would physically meet, of course, but I still have several of those people that I met during the summer schools. We didn't have winter schools then yet, who are still my friends and who I'll join at conferences and with whom I write papers. So yeah, I really appreciate these schools with the students. And I think, although it's not as nice, of course, and not as much fun to meet digitally, to some extent, I think it's easier to have discussions and questions in the environment we are in now. So also this morning, when we have Roberta Rabellotti as our keynote speaker, please feel welcome to pose questions. Actually, Nurul made you panelists this morning, so you can, if you have a question, you can speak up. But you can also use the chat if you prefer that, and then I will collect the questions, see if it's better to have them during the lecture or have them at the end. So again, a very warm welcome. Yeah, I would also like to announce Roberta, who's our speaker this morning. She's a professor of economics at the University of Pavia. She's very well known for her research on innovation in developing countries, on clusters, global value change, and multinationals. I think very important topics also today, when so many developments are taking place and having an impact on our society in many different ways. And for that reason, she also gives advice to several commissions, the European Commission, the Inter-American Investment Bank, the OECD, various national and regional governments. And also she published in very high impact journals such as Research Policy, World Development, and the Journal of Economic Geography. So Roberta, thank you very much for being here and taking the time to prepare and to meet with us. And the floor is yours.
Thanks, thank you very much. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so you can see the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here this morning and to have this opportunity to share with you some of my recent work on multinationals and local development. Of course, I would have been happier to be in Seville, but given the situation, I'm sitting in Milano. And I hope that everybody who is here today is safe and healthy. So let me start with the topic for today, which, as you see, is multinationals and local development. Some evidence on Europe. And sorry. Not okay. So before starting, I would like to give you a brief introduction about some of the topics on which I've been doing research recently and less recently. I've been doing some work on multinationals and in specific on multinational from emerging market, and you will see some of this work today. More recently, I've been starting to do research on green FDI, and I have a paper which has been submitted to the Journal of Cleaner Production, and we are still waiting, sorry the revisions. I've been doing quite a lot of work about global value chains and recently about innovation in global value chains. I've done some work on technological catch-up. In the past, we've focused on the wine industry, but more recently, we've focused on green technologies. And there is a special issue forthcoming in industrial corporate change, which have been edited together with some colleagues on technological catch-up in China in green technologies. And then in the past, I've been doing quite a lot of work on clusters, both in advanced countries with a focus on Italy, but also in developing countries. If you are curious and you want to know more about my work and you want to also to see some of the presentation I've done recently or some of my articles, you can check my website. So let me start with a topic for today. As I say, I'm going to talk about multinational and the role of multinational in local economies. And as you can see from some of these, some of the titles from these newspapers, multinationals very often are presented in the headlines in the news, and this is because for territories where these multinationals are arriving, they are an important way to, an important channel for accessing capital, for accessing knowledge, for the creation of new jobs. So cities or regions or clusters which are receiving investment from multinational are of course happy, tend to be very happy about that. And of course, when again, when multinational decide to leave for some reason regions or clusters, they also reach the headlines of the news. So what does it mean? It means that to investigate and to study the role of multinationals in local development is not only a topic for academic research, but is definitely something with a real and very important impact on the local economy. So let me go through the agenda for today. I think I probably included in the agenda too many topics, so I will have to skip some of them, but you will have the slide and all the references for the different topics I intended to touch in my presentation. So first of all, I will start with some data, some numbers about foreign direct investment. We will focus on Europe. Then I will discuss briefly multinational as global pipelines and their connection with local and regional development as these topics are treated in the literature. And then I would like to present you some empirical studies in which I've been involved, which are trying to address a number of key issues related with this link, with this relationship between multinational and regional development. So I will address the issue of location factors attracting multinational towards regions and clusters. I will address the topic about the impact of this investment on the multinationals making business investment. And then finally, if we do have the time, I will also try to discuss the difference between different type of investment, namely acquisition and greenfield, and try to understand what could be the different impact of these two different modes of entry in regions on the local host economies. And of course, we will have some final takeaways. So let me start with just very general numbers about foreign direct investment. In the past, I've been giving several times talks related with multinationals, and I was used to start saying, okay, foreign direct investment have been growing in the last few years dramatically. This is not anymore true, because as you can see from this graph, in from 2019, there was a dramatic decrease of foreign direct investment globally. In 2020, global FDI are below $1 trillion US, and this is for so they are below $1 trillion US for the first time since 2005. This graph comes from UNCTAD, and UNCTAD is expecting that there will be a rebound of foreign direct investment in 2022. And this could be, there are a number of factors that we can think can justify this rebound. On one side, we all hope that in 2022 we will be somehow being able to address the pandemic, and so this will be one reason for a rebound of foreign direct investment. But there is something which has already happened, which is the change, the political change in the US, which will probably reduce the tendency towards protectionism, although we still don't know what is going to happen to the trade war between China and US, because the pandemic is one of the reasons why there was this dramatic decrease of foreign direct investment, but it's not the only reason. We need also to take into account a tendency towards an increase in protectionism and the trade war between China and US. If we focus on the to a disaggregation of these flows in different parts of the world, we can see that Europe has not, has not gone well within this not positive picture, and into 2020, the flows, FDI flows into Europe were negative. So European countries have lost foreign direct investment in the last year. And to end this brief general picture about foreign direct investment, I would like to present you this this figure, which is taken from a recent study by Riccardo Crescenzi, who I think was giving the lecture yesterday with some colleagues. What they do is to disaggregate foreign direct investment, both as inward foreign direct investment, so foreign direct investment going towards a country, and outward, so foreign direct investment going out of a country. And the axes are the average for the European Union. And so what does it mean? It means that all the countries which are in the quadrant on the right and on the top right quadrant, these are countries which are both net receiver and net senders of FDI. And you can see among the countries which are which have a key position in terms of attracting and sending FDI in Europe, there are Germany, UK, France, and Spain. And instead, the other countries I have outlined on the quadrant on the right and the bottom are countries like Ireland, Poland, and Romania, and these countries are net receivers of FDI in Europe. So this is a picture, a representation of the position of the different EU countries with respect to foreign direct investment. So let me come to the literature. I would like to start saying that multinationals have a key role in the global economy because, first of all, they account for 1/3 of world GDP, and they are responsible for half of global export. Moreover, multinational with the growing fragmentation of production have been also key protagonists of global value chains. So their importance in the global economy have increased, being one of the main, among the main actors in global value chains. And we also need to take into account that multinationals are leading actors behind the internationalization of technology and the knowledge creation and diffusion process. So multinationals, we can say that multinationals play a key role in connectivity and the economic integration of countries and regions. And I would like to point your attention to this concept about connectivity. And I would like to make to emphasize the difference between what is connectedness and connectivity. The idea, the concept of connectedness is pointing out to the fact that regions and countries need to have transportation and communication infrastructure which are needed in order to connect them with the rest of the world. The idea of connectivity is broader with respect to the idea of connectedness because connectivity is defining the degree of two-way openness and integration. So two-way, it means that regions or countries are connected, for instance, with respect to foreign direct investment because they receive foreign direct investment, but at the same time, they can also be the origin of foreign direct investment. So it's a two-way openness. And this openness is shaping in a very important way the domestic availability of skills, of competencies and business functions of regions and local economies. We need also to take into account that connectivity is also shaped by the economic and socio-institutional regional context, in the sense that connectivity also depends on the type of regional and local policy which are undertaken in a specific territory by the development of the regional innovation system, by the diffusion of knowledge spillovers, and also by the regional specialization. So when we consider these flows, which are the way in which we can define connectivity, we can characterize these flows in terms of directionality. So in the case of investment, we can inward invest, we can have inward investment and outward investment. And here you can see two map in which you have a representation of the distribution of a regional distribution of inward FDI in the European country on the left, and outward FDI in the European country, in the European regions on the right. So these maps are a representation of the directionality of investment flows. Then investment flows can be characterized in terms of their nature. So we can have flows of capital, flows of skills, flows of knowledge, and then, of course, they can be identified in terms of their spatial distribution. So they can be regional or global. And for instance, if we consider the European Union, we can distinguish between investment flows which are intra-European Union, so going from one country or one region of European Union to the other, or extra-European Union. So investment flows coming from China or coming from the US into the European Union, European regions. So what is this connection between multinational and regional development? We can say that nowadays multinational and local regional economies are confronting very similar challenges, and their competitiveness is increasingly interconnected. If we consider multinational, they can be defined as knowledge integrators, which are complementing their own knowledge by tapping knowledge which is geographically dispersed, and by entering into the local knowledge bases in different clusters and regions around the world. So what they do is to integrate their own knowledge with knowledge that they can pick up entering into different clusters in the world. On the other side, local economies and their development depend on a combination between what has been defined by Stopper and Venable as the local base, so the localized productive and knowledge net assets of a specific locality, and the capacity of these local economies to access knowledge through global pipelines. And among these global pipelines, multinationals are definitely playing a key role. So multinationals are a key global pipeline through which local economies access external knowledge, external skills, external competencies. So what does it mean, this? It means that to understand this connection and this relationship between multinational and local development, we need to follow a very interdisciplinary approach. A very interdisciplinary approach which is taking account of different separated areas of the literature which have been dealing with, on one side, local development, and on the other side, multinational. So traditionally, multinational have been the focus of two main areas of research: international business studies, with a focus on the strategy of multinational, and treating location as a source of advantage or disadvantage. Another field of research which have been studying traditionally multinational is international economies, international economics, maybe focusing on the direct and indirect impact of FDI on home and host regions. And instead, economic geography has been focusing on the nature of growth in local economies. And so in order to address questions like where do multinationals choose to locate and why, what activities they delocalize, where and how, do multinational benefit from their investment in different regions, we really need to take an interdisciplinary approach, which is trying to make good use of this different field of studies. And this is what we have tried to do in a number of studies on which I've been contributing, which I would like to briefly present you. I'm not sure I will have the time to present everything, but I will try to present you some of them at least. So first of all, studies in which we have been dealing with the location factors attracting multinational towards regions, and then studies in which we have been trying to address the impact of investment on the innovation capacity of multinationals. And finally, as I was saying, studies trying to address the different impact of different type of investment, distinguishing between acquisition and greenfield investment. I will probably not have the time to go through all of them. So let me start with the location. The main point here is to try to understand the location factors attracting different type of investment, because multinationals are locating in regions a different type of investment. They can locate production investment, or they can locate, for instance, research and development. So what we do in these studies, which is a study published in the Economic Geography, in the Journal of Economic Geography, we study a sample of more than 19,000 greenfield investment, and we use this database, which is FDI market, and the advantage of this database is to offer information about the type of activities which is undertaken by the multinational in a specific location. So we can distinguish between headquarters, innovative activities, commercial activities, production, logistics, and distribution. And we test a nested logic model. So what does it mean? We test the choice of a multinational to, first of all, choosing which country where to locate, and then within this country in which regions locating the investment. Here, just very briefly, I would like to present you some data which are more updated with respect to the data of our own paper, just to give you an idea of how these different functions are distributed in the European Union countries. So as you can see, most of the investment are in the production phase, followed by sales, headquarters, and innovation. And this is just map, but I think I will skip them, presenting the distribution of these different functions. And if you look at this map, you can see that the distribution is very different depending on the function, because as we have shown in this paper, is the type of location factors that multinationals are looking for are of course different depending on the function they want to undertake. So what are the investment location drivers we are testing? We are testing different type of indicator to measure regional innovative capacity, R&D investment as a share of regional GDP and patent intensity, but also an indicator which is the social filter, which was introduced in the literature by Crescenzi and Rodriguez Pose, which is an indicator different from the previous one because it's offering information about the regional innovation system. So it's trying to measure kind of more soft factors indicating how prone is a region in terms of attracting innovative activities. Then we have a number of indicators about regional agglomeration. And then we have indicator about the market size and labor market indicators. And let me come to the finding very briefly. Our findings are confirming that indeed multinational locate different type of activities where they can be carried out most effectively, tapping into very different location-specific resources and capabilities. And we find that regional factors are stronger drivers for R&D investment, which are attracted to regions with strong innovation systems. So with strong innovation systems which are proxied by this social filter, while investment in production, investment in manufacturing are driven by regional market, labor market conditions. So as you can see, different type of investment are attracted by very different factors. And what is interesting is to instead, in the case of the headquarters, they are more attracted by national characteristics rather than by regional characteristics. So what does it mean? It means that when a multinational is deciding where to go, is more the choice is more between countries, while when a multinational is deciding where to do an investment in innovative activities, the choice is more among different regions. So this is important. This is providing important policy implication. It's providing important policy implication because it means that, for instance, for regional government, is not worth trying to attract headquarters because headquarters are more driven by national characteristics than by regional characteristics. And instead, it is the result of these studies is providing some interesting implications in terms of what kind of regional factors could be improved in order to attract different type of investment. So what kind of regional factor could be improved in order to attract R&D investment, or in order to attract production or commercial investment. Can I ask you how much time I have?
So it's a little past 10 o'clock. So I think if you have 5 to 7 minutes, that will be, then we have 20 minutes for questions.
Okay, good. So I think I will skip this because it's a similar paper with respect to the previous one. The only difference, if you are interested, you can maybe check the paper, is that we are introducing the idea, the concept of emerging market multinational. So emerging market multinational are those multinational coming from emerging countries. And our point is that these emerging market multinational are have a different behavior in terms of their location choice with respect to multinational from developed countries. And I come to a different paper again on emerging market multinational. And in this paper, what we are trying to understand is the impact of acquisition on the innovation capacity of these multinationals when they do investment in advanced countries. And here our starting point is to emphasize that emerging market multinationals are trying to address when they do acquisitions in advanced regions, they are trying to acquire knowledge, because on one side they are acquiring companies, so they acquire the knowledge of the company, but at the same time they are also trying to acquire knowledge through their embedment in regions or clusters. So there is it's important to distinguish between these two possible different channels of knowledge acquisitions. And when they try to make this investment, emerging market multinationals are facing two different challenges. The first challenge is relating with the fact that these multinationals tend to have weak absorptive capacities. So they do not have the capacity to identify a good capacity to identify the knowledge which is useful for them, and also to take advantage of this knowledge. On the other side, there is another challenge that they are facing, and this is the fact that these multinationals tend to suffer by liability of emergence and to have a reputation which is sometimes creating a barrier for them when they try to acquire knowledge. And this is because, for instance, if you think about when these multinationals enter into a region in a European country, let's say an Italian region, their reputation is somehow creating some form of barriers. Other firms are not very willing to share their knowledge with them, or either either local engineers, for instance, are not so much happy to go and work in this firm. So it means that to try to acquire knowledge locally is not always easy for them. And so what we do in this paper is to address these two following questions. First of all, we want to understand if the innovative output of this multinational after the acquisition depends on the innovative capacity of the target firm. So when they acquire more innovative firms, they are becoming more innovative, and we want to understand if a different absorptive capacity and a different status are somehow moderating this relationship. The empirical setting we are studying is are acquisitions made by Chinese and Indian multinational in Europe and in the US. What we do is to study therefore the impact on the post-deal innovative performance of the firms making the acquisition, and the innovative performance is measured in terms of a patent applied by the acquirer firm in the 3 years after the deal. And I will just skip this, and I just would like to give you some ideas of how we measure the two moderators. Absorptive capacity is measured in terms of patent and patent the patent of the acquiring firms before the acquisition. So the patent are taken as a measure of the absorptive capacity of the knowledge base of the firms before the acquisition. And then we measure the status of firms in an interesting way, if I can say. So it's measured in terms of the way in which the company making the acquisition is portrayed in the news. So basically, if a company is portrayed in a positive way, it will have a good status, so it will have a good reputation, and this will help its capacity to acquire knowledge through the acquisition. Let me come a bit to the result. What we find is that the acquisition of knowledge for these multinational firms is not easy at all, in the sense that there is a lot of resistance, both within the firms acquired, but also locally in the clusters where they make the acquisition. But this resistance is moderated by a strong knowledge base. So when the firm making the acquisition has a good knowledge base and as a good reputation, it is easier for these firms to use the knowledge that they can acquire in order to become more innovative. So I will just skip this and go to the conclusion. Okay, so findings in a nutshell. Sorry, no, it's not this one I want to go. The final takeaways. First of all, in this series of studies, we have been showing that multinational are driven by different location drivers, and the location drivers varies according to the value chain activities which is undertaken locally, to the country of origin. So emerging market multinational have different behavior and strategies with respect to multinational from advanced countries. And I did not have the time, but also depending on the choice, the mode of entry. So greenfield and acquisition are having a different impact on the regions where they are located. And what does it mean? It means that the heterogeneity, this heterogeneity requires local development policies which are much more complex than the typical local development policies attracting foreign direct investment. So the so-called attraction policy of inward FDI no matter what. It is required, the location strategies of multinational are very complex, and this means that local policymakers need to know much more about the relationships between local and international knowledge networks, and about how and whether these networks help to promote or to impede regional economic development in order to undertake and to elaborate policies which which take into account this heterogeneity at the level of the multinationals. And for concluding, I would like just to emphasize 2 points. The first one is that most of the literature we have been, I've been exploring, and most of the results I have also been presenting today are focused on attraction of FDI. But as I said at the beginning, connectivity entails bidirectional links. So it means that regions should also start to think about policy for in terms of sustaining local companies when they want to internationalize. So because the regional economic development depends on these bidirectional links, depends on the capacity to attract investment, but depends also on the capacity to send investment, to make investment abroad. And last point, I will not go through all these details point, but the point is that there is still a lot to be studied and a lot to be known in terms of the different micro channels through which multinationals are entering and are accessing knowledge when they enter into a regions. And to know more about these channels is very much useful in terms of the from the point of view of a multinational, but also from the point of view of the regions which need to implement and to identify a new policy measure for making the better use of this investment coming to their territories. So I'm sorry, I probably excess in terms of information, but I hope it's been clear.
Thank you very much.
You will find here, I suppose that you will have all the slides. Here are all the main references. Thank you
very much, Roberta, for a very elaborate and very interesting presentation. I expect that there are several questions. Who would like to start? I don't see any questions in the chat yet. So if you have a question, you can just speak up or write it down in the chat. And I can also start with a question because I really liked all the information that you shared with us also about how this foreign direct investment, how it depends on local factors, on regional factors, and how these choices are made, differences between headquarters and other types of businesses. What I also wondered, so if I look at it from the perspective of the region itself, I think there's an increasing discussion what kind of foreign direct investments you want to accept also in your region or want to attract. And I think there, if you look at the impact on the local regional economy, I think there's a lot of difference between different sectors in terms of the impact on the labor market, for example, but also, of course, the impact on, let's say, the environment, the quality of the environment, or some negative externalities that these activities can have. Can you elaborate a bit on the difference? What if you think about also quality of life or about the quality of the regional economy, what kind of investments should we attract?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I think once I was in Brussels in a seminar, and there was a guy who was used to work in the German embassy in Beijing. And he was saying that, at the beginning of Chinese investment in Europe, they were receiving messages from the German government say, you have to try to convince Chinese companies to make investment in Germany. And then at a certain point, this Chinese investment started to be too many in Germany. And so they started to have the request. So you have to tell us which one are good investment, which one are bad investment, which of course is very difficult. I mean, but it's a real problem, no? So how to distinguish which one is a good Chinese investment, which one is a bad Chinese investment? And so one issue is exactly, for instance, now there is this, I mean, the origin of investment is very important. So there is this skepticism about what, for instance, Chinese investment are doing in some specific strategic areas. And for this reason, there is also this new framework, which is not so new now, European framework for investment, which is trying to regulate investment in some strategic areas. I think one important point is also in the relation between the type of investment. This was one of the paper I was thinking to present, the distinction between acquisition and greenfield. So there is this idea that acquisition are bad and greenfield are good, because acquisition are not creating new jobs, because acquisition sometimes are even reducing jobs. So these, I think, are all important issues to know more from the empirical point of view, exactly because this information and this evidence is useful in terms of informing the policy. And then, of course, another point is also in terms of the impact of, in terms of environment, which, for instance, is a very dramatic problem in developing countries very often, where sometimes investment tend to, some type of investment can have a very huge impact on the environment. So for this reason, I think that the policy, the investment policy need to be much more elaborated and much more complex. And for this, policymakers need evidence, empirical evidence.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Svetlana,
there is a chat.
Has a question. Can you read it, Roberta? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Could you please specify what database can we use if we would like to investigate the inflow and outflow of FDI for specific region and also innovative activity? Thank you. Okay. Yes. Yes. One database. The database that we used for these studies, in which we were studying the different type of activities. So the database which is providing information about what type of investment, if the investment is in R&D, if the investment is in production or is in commercial activity, is a database which is called the FDI market, and is provided by the Financial Times. Unfortunately, it's a commercial database and it's very expensive. So one of a very key point when you study FDI investment are data, because most of the information available is available in commercial database. So for greenfield, there is this FDI market. For acquisition, the database, there are several databases. One which can be used, and we have used, is ZFAR, which is a database connected with Orbis by Bureau Bandic. But this detailed information are not usually publicly available. So although I mean, for FDI market, it's not easy to find in universities, but Orbis, many universities have the subscription, so maybe this is easier to find.
I see another question from Gidre, and perhaps
yes.
he or she can pose the question itself. I think it's nice to see some faces as well,
sure.
if possible.
So I read the question. Okay, a number of FDI sometimes do not reveal if it is one huge MNEs investing in a region or several MNEs. Would it be important or possible to analyze a number of variety of MNEs in regions? Well, usually in this database, which I've just mentioned, you know, which is the multinational which have done the investment, because these databases are at firm level. So you know that the multinational XY has made this investment. But what you say in terms, it is important to understand and to know what kind of multinationals are making the investment. Yes, and indeed, and in fact, there are a lot of studies making this distinction, for instance, in terms of the country of origin of a multinational. So there is a wide literature, for instance, relatively recent, on emerging market multinationals. So, and because emerging market multinationals tend to behave in a different way with respect to a traditional multinational. In Europe, there is a literature focusing on intra-EU in foreign direct investment and extra-EU foreign direct investment. So the country of origin of the multinational is indeed one important element of the complexity.
Then I think I see that Dr. Mavini Dozo also raised her hand, or his hand.
Thank you. Hi, Roberta. Hi, Evelyn. Thank you, Roberta. Always enriching your presentation.
So you are still in Ivory Coast.
Yes,
I can see from your.
Yes, I am. I have a small question, and it's related to exactly the multinational. If you remember, I told you that at the GSE we also had a team dedicated to the study of the R&D and innovation investment of multinationals. And I was thinking that sometime, from what I've read on this, I have the impression that there's a race to FDI. Sometimes it looks like a race to the bottom to FDI. So because we know that countries are often leveraging it for growth and jobs creation purposes. And this year we published a chapter in the annual scoreboard showing an indicator on how the multinational innovative one, if we can say, are performing on the sustainable development goals, both in terms of reputation and disclosure. So when you had your presentation, and I know that you are also investigating on green opportunities, green industrial trajectories, I was thinking whether you think if at the EU level or in general also for less developed and less advanced region, it's possible to set up some kind of green or SDG related criteria. Would it make sense to have some kind of this criteria, considering that we have often this race to the bottom, and would it be feasible, or what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think this is a good, very good point, and I mean, I think it's relating. There is a literature which is very much related with this and could be of interest for what you are doing, which is the literature about the impact of this multinational in terms of human rights, and also in terms of environmental impact. So if but I don't know if you have never seen the work done by Elisa Giuliani, but I can point to some of this work, some of her work. So basically, this literature is really trying to understand if multinationals are somehow related with the infringement of human rights in some countries, and also distinguish about the type of multinational. So, for instance, if the multinational from emerging countries are tend to have a behavior which can be less careful in terms of environment, less careful in terms of human rights. I mean, I refer clearly, for instance, of all the Chinese multinational in Africa and in some specific industry like natural resources, and so on and so forth. So I think this literature is not directly addressing the SDGs, but I think is going very much in this direction. And I'm really looking forward to see your chapter, because I think is a it's going to be very, very interesting, and it's a very important area to investigate.
Thank you, Roberto, and
Thank you,
also
Roberta.
Mafini.
Okay.
I think there's one final question, and we have 2 more minutes from Leonardo Fargu. Thank you for the presentation. Do you think that the presence of large research centers with high-tech content can play a role in attracting FDI to regions? If so, what kind of FDI?
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I read I was not following when do you think the presence of large can play a role in attracting FDI to reach? Okay, yeah, yes, of course. I mean, what we have found is that the investment in innovative activities are attracted towards region with high innovative capacity, and of course presence of large research centers are part of this innovative capacity. I would say that the presence of research centers together with the presence of universities, together with the presence of high-skilled labor market. These are all conditions which are very important in terms of attracting innovative investment towards regions. So definitely, I would say that it is so. Okay.
Okay, then one final question from Milena. Milena, can you please raise your question yourself? Open your camera or at least your microphone.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Robert. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, because I studied multinational and national companies in Brazil, right, in terms of innovative activity. And what I found was that innovative activity carried by multinational is more focused on adapting innovation and maintain the local market. Of course, there are some exceptions, but the big majority, what they actually do is this type of adaptations to the local characteristics. So, because the size of the domestic market, not just the Brazilian market, but South American market. And my question is more in terms of policy. What could you suggest to improve the type of innovative activity in this context for less developed country?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, I mean, your point is very true in the sense that a lot of innovative activity made by multinational in the host countries could be driven by adaptation of adaptation of what they do to the local market. It should be said also that this depends also very much on the sectors, because in some cases adaptation to the local market, in some other cases could be instead also, so and could be instead innovation not only driven by adaptation. Again, I would say that in terms of the what regions can do, I would say that what we were saying before about setting up a well-functioning regional innovation system is the key message. And then what does it mean? It means to have an innovation system in which you have well-functioning research institution, in which you have universities preparing students for the needs of the multinationals. It needs to have in developing countries very often is very important to have institution able to provide international standard and certifications. For instance, this is very important for all the agro-industry, in which, for instance, Brazil has a very important share of the market. So in this case, certification and international certification, international standards are key in terms of attracting also innovative activities of multinationals. So these are, I think, generally speaking, the type of policy implication for innovative activities in regions. Thank you. I think there are more questions. I don't know if we have time.
Yes, there are more questions. I have to leave, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I think there's also a short break, and some will have to present, I think, in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these questions are also very interesting, because perhaps you can use them also for another discussion. So perhaps you can send an email, or you can also discuss it within another group. And that's, I'm saying that to the students, to the attendants.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
I will. Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
No, I thought I lost the connection. No, anyway, I will be in one of the panel after the break, so maybe we can. Yes, I mean, probably I'm not sure we will have the time to discuss this, but if anyway, I don't know. But I mean, I will share my PowerPoint, and you will have my email, and you can get in touch if you need. Anything and you want clarification, or you are interested in some specific topics. Thank you.
And
very
for those with a question, if there's an opportunity, please raise it, because I think they're very, very interesting. So I would like to thank you very much, Roberta. Also thank everyone for joining. I wish you a really great rest of the winter school, and I also hope to see you sometime. Well, either at the ERSA conference. You know, we have great time slots for the young researchers, young scientists. So please feel very welcome to join us there, and also at any other event that we are organizing, or at any other events. So yes, thank you all very much. Thank you, particularly Roberta, and have a very good rest of the week. Bye.